Hello, welcome back to another Godzilla Battleline video. Today we're going to be doing our Season 20 tier list. Season 20 already. Wow, what a long way we've come. Mechagodzilla 2021 is the new unit for the season, and without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. I do think we're going to be doing this one alphabetically, so God tier attack options starting out here in the D tier. Train bomb just got fixed as well, so these things are not going to be moving anytime soon without a pretty major buff. Next is Anguirus. Anguirus is a staple A tier pick, ton of health, pretty cheap cost, really good at stalling on buildings, pretty slow walker. He's kind of everything you want in a tank in this game. He fits into a ton of teams, and you get him right off the bat. He's a very accessible unit. Next is Batra. Batra is the S tier god of this game. He has been for maybe even a year now. It's pretty crazy. He just got buffed a month or two back, and it looks like Batra is here to stay. Next is Biolante. Biolante is going to go into the A tier. We did drop Bio into the A tier last time. She is a phenomenal ground unit. Probably the best damage in the game as a ground unit. Best carry, 3 cost. It's pretty crazy what she does. But at the end of the day, she needs the Watcher to do a ton of damage, so Tokyo isn't exactly the best map for her. And she isn't exactly tanky enough to be a super solid tank. Still pretty good for 3 costs, but I just don't think it's hitting S tier anymore. Top of A tier is a nice place to be though, so she's still in a pretty good spot. Next is Stealth Bomber. I think I am going to put Stealth Bomber in C tier. I'm just seeing a little more people try it out. It is chip damage, so it's not, I don't know, man. I'm not that high on Stealth Bomber. I think it's pretty susceptible to being stalled on. C tier isn't exactly too good, as we all know, but it's definitely the very bottom of C tier, the very bottom. Next is Burning Godzilla. We're going to go ahead and put in around the bottom of S tier. It sounds about good. Burning Godzilla is really strong. He's a great tank. His explosion hits everything and has a very big radius, and he's very slow, so it's pretty easy for him to get to at least 1 bar. And he is essentially a Anguirus that costs a little bit more, can hit air, isn't as tanky, but can explode and hit a lot of things. So he's not the tankiest tank in the game, but he's definitely one of the most damage dealing of the tank options. He's just a very good pick. He fits in this game very nicely. It's weird to see because old Burning Godzilla was so bad, but he fits in so nicely. He's just the perfect staller, perfect first drop, and a amazing tank, like I said. Next is Descadora, who we are going to be putting back in B tier. I just used Descadora too, so I have a little bit better reference in my mind for him. Unfortunately, 7 cost is a huge downfall nowadays. Like, there isn't really any 7 cost units that are scratching even A tier. It's just really hard for them to function. They don't really have the highest of stats for being 7 cost compared to some 5 cost units. Attack speed isn't super high, and Descadora gets absolutely countered by every single stunner in the game. Like, he is most susceptible to getting messed up by stuns, that's for sure. But Dimension Tide combo is still pretty good with him. He's not a bad carry option, but with how the meta has been for the past couple months, above 5 cost carries are harder to make work, and 7 cost is a lot harder than 6. And King Ghidorah and Descadora just haven't been in as good of a spot since way back when, but still a decent option. Next is Destroya. So I'm actually going to demote Destroya back down to C tier. I think Destroya does have pretty big problems. The evolution times did get fixed, yes, but I still think it's really hard to double evolve Destroya from first form to second form all the way to perfect form on the first drop. It's really hard, and then you're still pretty much having to evolve like perfect form Destroya like on your second drop if you can do that every time. I think it's pretty manageable. It's not super hard once you have the flying form, but by that point it's probably 2 minutes into the match and that could already be a loss for you. And then once Destroya comes, I don't think he's impactful enough to really warrant anything higher. I mean, you got to think Destroya should be, once it hits the field, perfect form anyways, should be one of the strongest units, if not the strongest unit in the game. It is the highest cost 2 evolution unit because it is a 7 cost over Shin Godzilla, which is 6 cost. And there's not many triple evolve units in the game, which is a lot of work, which means that Destroya should be very, very strong, or the payoff should be there. But I'm not saying he's weak, but for how much payoff you need with Destroya, like with how much it needs to be on paper, I don't think it's enough. Destroya should be stronger. He should be pretty menacing. It's like when Terrestris evolves into Ultima, you're like, yeah, the payoff's pretty much there. Like, Ultima's doing a lot of damage from far away, and he's pretty damn tanky. He has a lot of pluses. Destroya just doesn't have as many of those, despite being still a pretty good unit. He needs to be like an OP unit. So for right now, I'm just going to leave him in C. That's just how I feel. Next is Destroy Larva Swarm, going into D tier. I do not like this thing. I think Kamacuras Swarm is just a better version of this. For the same cost, you get 2 more units, and that's really the only value I see in them, just meat shields. And 7 is better than 5. Due to my amazing math skills, I can get get the math for that. Next is Dimension Tide, which we will put above Burning. Dimension Tide's probably the best effect in the game now, especially with Psychic Chorus getting a couple nerfs over the past couple months. There's so many things you can do with Dimension Tide. It counters so many things. It combos with so many things. There's no counterplay to it. You pretty much just do whatever you want. It's like you're manipulating the game. You're just like, I just want to pull all this stuff and do damage to it. There's nothing you can do to stop me. And it just makes it really good. It just functions extremely well with piercing units. You can use it just to manipulate other units and pull them into certain situations. It's really good into just like things you wouldn't even think of, like Ultima, for example, Godzilla Earth. Those backline snipers that are pretty tanky, it's really nice to be able to reposition those guys and suck them in. So, I mean, Dimension Tide's crazy. We all know it. We've been playing this game for a bit, and if you haven't, hop on the Dimension Tide train because it is indeed a very good effect. Next is Dorats, which we are going to be putting into the B tier. Dorats kind of shifts a lot for me, but I don't know. They're 3 cost, which isn't exactly that cheap. Like, Biollante is also 3 cost, but they're pretty decent at support. You know, they've come a long way. They're not too horrible, and Doggy's getting some good ear scratches in over there. But I just think they're decent. You know, they're not too bad. They could be higher. I don't think they could be lower. I feel like this is a pretty modest take with them, but I feel like a lot more people should try them out. They could fit into some teams pretty easily because of their cheap cost and utility. They are not as good as Kamacuras, no, but you can pair them with Kamacuras, and the only real counter to it is Dimension Tide, which we just rated, that can take out both Kamacuras and Dorats. But if they aren't running Dimension Tide, it's a very strong defensive combo. But Dimension Tide is the thing that kind of holds Dorats back, but still a pretty decent pick. Next is Energy Base, which we are going to be putting in around top of B. So Train Bomb was down for half of this season. It just got fixed. And I think we can all agree now that Energy Base is pretty busted. We all know what it was like to get Energy Based on. You may have forgotten. Maybe that's why you rated so low, but it's really, really OP when that thing is up, and we saw a lot more uses of Kiryu because of it. But now that Train Bomb's fixed, it's pretty much going back to the same exact spot it was, which was around top of B. But yeah, don't sleep on this thing, you guys. Don't sleep on Energy Base. It just makes teams work. It makes the game go super fast, and makes playing it more fun for me because you're just throwing out units a lot more often, doing a lot bigger combos. But yeah, very strong. Next is Fire Dan, which we are going to be putting right behind Batra. Fire Dan is amazing. It's an easy evolution. The pre-evolution is even useful because it's speed boost, and it's a decent tank because it always takes an extra hit due to a glitch. The final form of Rodan is amazing on defense. It is pretty solid on offense. Speed boost, heals, cheap cost at 5, pretty decent stats. I mean, Fire Dan, good range. Fire Dan is a 5-tool player, and without any changes to him, I don't really ever see him dropping out of S because the heal is so damn strong alone that if Fire Dan got nerfed in other categories, I think the heal would just keep him in S tier. He's that good. But yeah, love me some Fire Dan. It's getting a little old now. I was pretty stoked when Fire Dan got buffed way back in the day, if you remember, but you know, I still like seeing him out there. He's one of my favorite kaiju, so it's good to see Fire Dan getting some respect. Next is Sonde. We're going to put above Stealth Bomber. Another lackluster C tier unit. It is 2 costs, so it's not like that expensive, but it just doesn't really have an effective use, and you can't deploy it all the time because if you slow units like willy-nilly, it can counter you because it like stalls their push and lets them get a lot more units stacked together. So it's just not really worth it. I think it needs to do more damage, and maybe they nerfed its damage a while ago, but maybe they could increase the cost to like 3 and then buff the damage a little bit or a lot of it, since it doesn't really do that much, but it's not very good. It's best used with snipers like Ultima, Super X, and Godzilla Earth so that they have more time to shoot before they get into range to fight them, but not super good. Also, what's not super good is Giant Octopus. Worst unit in the game, 0 uses, it's just trash. There's nothing really I can say about it other than that. It is that useless. Gigan 04, I'm going to be putting right here in B tier. Gigan 04 is good, DPS is good, stuns are good, pretty useful on offense and defense. Only problem is, he's not very tanky at all. He's very frail for a 4-star. Might be one of the most frail 4-stars in the game, maybe even the most. And he can't hit flyers, which means they can just blast him to high hell before he can really do anything. Where a unit like King Caesar, that charge damage is happening instantly once he connects, whatever it is. Gigan kind of needs time to grapple to something and stun it, and then have at least enough time to swipe it with 2 sets of swipes, at least, for him to be doing decent damage. But Gigan's just kind of not tanky enough in most situations to always be doing that. He's still pretty solid for around a top of B tier pick, but I do think he has his flaws, and it kind of sits in his health department, but still pretty good. Next is Gigan 72. We're going to put right here. Gigan 72 has been getting a lot more play, a lot better overall with buffs and the level increases. He has some uses with pushing units. He's the best unit at pushing other units, but that's not really like a huge thing in this game yet. He is pretty expensive for 5 cost still. It's kind of the crappy thing about him, but his stats are a lot better, and he does do very decent damage if he can get down there. You can't really sleep on Gigan anymore. You do have to take him out. It's just not that hard to take him out because he doesn't attack your units. So it kind of requires pretty smart play from Gigan 72 users to make sure he's not getting stalled on and getting out a lot of damage. But he's not exactly horrible anymore, and that's pretty good to see. At least he's in a more usable state. Maybe I'll try him out again soon. I don't think I've used him in a while. He's still only level 30, but he gets access to G89 boost, and isn't the worst thing, like I said. So if you want to have fun with Gigan, you can have fun. You can have fun, but he's not exactly going to be that good. Next is G21, who I'm putting behind Destroya. G21 just got buffs, and I feel like it did nothing for the guy. He's a little tankier, so survivability is a little bit better, but he still has really glaring problems with not locking onto things soon enough. And he could have gotten a bit better of a health buff. The attack buff I barely noticed because his damage kind of scales and ramps the same. But yeah, I'm just not that high on G21. I wish I could say I was higher. maybe in like a month or two, because it is almost like he's a new unit again. He just got added back, so it's going to take a while for people to stockpile a couple level ups on him. I know I haven't even pulled him yet this season, so maybe in time we'll see how good G21 is these next couple months, but for right now, I'm still leaning towards a C tier pick. Sorry, buddy. Next is G54. Put him right between Gigan and Descadora. G54 was A tier last season because Wales used that combo a lot, and I just put a little respect on it. But I think I'm just going to drop it again, because at the end of the day, I think G54 is the weakest part of that combo. It's really just his HP and low walk speed that makes it work. He's just not that enticing of a unit to throw into your deck. The transformations, can work out for you, but they can also be kind of bad, and you do have to team build around it. And B tier isn't bad. We can all make B tier work, and we could beat anybody with a B tier pick, but as far as consistency goes, G54 just isn't the consistent guy with me. He just never has been. So for that reason, he's still going to be in B tier, but with some respect on his name, he still works in some pretty high level teams, and he has his niches, so good for him. Next is G89, which we will put right here. G89, I'm going to be a little higher on this season for no reason. Maybe I'm just sleeping on G89. He is very counterable, but then I started thinking, like, there's nothing that does what G89 does better. Like, there's nothing that's tankier than him, that hits as hard as him, that's like a ground unit. And he does have that niche locked down. I still use him on those Mothra teams, and I know people use him on Gigan teams all the time. So, there's nothing like huge changing with G89, but I still feel like he's a double-edged sword. He's got his counters, he can get stalled on, but he can also, you can just drop the guy and hit Gigan, Blade Ripper, or Mothra heal, and he could also just win the game. So he's a pretty easy unit, but definitely not something that is going to make you the best player in the game. He's going to get countered eventually. It's going to be hard to constantly win streak with G89 nowadays. Next is Godzilla Earth. We're going to go ahead and put right in A tier. Also feel like I was a little higher on Earth in past seasons than I am right now. The main reason with Earth that I'm a little bit lower on him is because he is 9 cost, so he does have to be that good. But he also can be shut down. Like, it's not super hard. There's multiple ways you could do it, especially if they don't have Dimension Tide. But let's say they do have Dimension Tide. You still have, like, Kiryu or Mog you could drop behind him to switch his aggro around. You can drop a Jet Jaguar or a Anguirus to try to soak him up. The Dimension Tide combo is going to make things all get hit, but it's not exactly like the most consistent thing. There are little gaps in it that you can get around. And if you can make Earth lock onto one unit while other units shoot him in the back or the side, he is going to go down, and he is 9 cost. So that's like the whole bar of energy almost. So it's a huge advantage state if you can push through Earth pretty easily. But at the same time, that Dimension Tide combo is nuts, and he is a very strong unit, and he can one-shot a whole bar of energy pretty easily. So Godzilla Earth is like a double-edged attack helicopter, or there's attack helicopter in this game, so let's rephrase. He's like a double-edged Apache AC-130 hybrid helicopter, guys. Hitting like crazy, but also could just end up in a huge explosion that's not going to bode well for you. And he's kind of hard to drop in overtime, so still an A tier pick, just not like the highest of A. He's more towards the middle bottom. Next is Godzilla Ultima, who is more towards the bottom of A. Godzilla Ultima, my old friend that I barely use anymore. I feel like I always forget about Ultima. I don't know why. He's not in any ranked videos. I gotta throw him in there. But Terrestrius is a little bastard sometimes, especially on Kong, Skull Island, which just came out. Terrestrius isn't exactly that easy to evolve, especially if they have a King Caesar, because he really likes water. And the side of the maps are very linear with ground right next to it, so King Caesar could still like run next to him, but it's not the worst. It's not like I think Tokyo is probably the hardest map for Terrestrius. Ultima's just a great sniper, and I think Super X is falling more and more out of the meta, which makes Ultima one of the more reliable sniper options in the game. The thing is, he could still be shut down through his terrestrial stage, so I don't think Ultima's ever going to be higher than bottom of A for me without a buff, but he still cemented this place in this game and is a staple in the meta, at least towards the bottom of the meta. He's always around. You're always going to see an Ultima every now and then. But if you do bring the right counters, he's very counterable in his terrestrial stage. But if he gets up, prepare to take some Godzilla blast to the dome, because he's going to be hitting hard from far away. Next is Hedorah, who I'm going to be putting right here, right behind Angears. Hedorah's just a solid 4-cost, 3-star option. The evolution's pretty damn easy. The Poison Cloud's really nice because Hedorah's usually dying, and it just adds to a lot of damage. Hedorah's just a pure AoE option. The attacks are AoE, leaves an AoE Poison Cloud, is 4 cost, so it's pretty cheap, hits all units. The splash is really, really nice. It's a really nice splash. It can hit things pretty often, like more than one thing pretty often. So I don't think Hedorah is like a carry, but it's just fits into this game. It performs really well, and it does a great job at countering close pushes, which is how most people like to push. I always stack my things close together so they fight together, and Hedorah just counters that meta strategy just naturally. So it's a good unit. Now back to a not good unit, Jet Jaguar 73. Oh boy. Oh boy, look at him just stand there. He stands there like he knows he's bad too, like, yes, I'm bad. JJ73 just needs a lot more. He needs to be like a tank because he's so ineffective. He's made to counter short-range units, clearly, and there's not that many short-range units in the game. And, yeah, he does not have enough good matchups. He shuts down some things like G89, Anguirus, Mechagodzilla 2021, he had a pretty good matchup into, but anything else is just going to eat him alive. It's not even close. He's still a D tier pick for now. I mean, if the meta changes and Mechagodzilla 2021, G89, and Anguirus are all S tiers, then yes, Jet Jaguar maybe could be an A tier pick, but until that day when all those units are in every deck, he is not going to be seeing much play. Jet Jaguar, singular point. Yo, dog, you chill over there. Jet Jaguar singular point is going... Oh my goodness, she is scratching the hell out of her back. Yo, chill out over there. Yes, I'm talking to you. Jet Jaguar singular point. B tier. A decent tank, but there's just better options. Anguirus is just a better option. Biollante is kind of just a better option. He is tanky, but what he's tanky into doesn't really matter. You know, like Batra, Firedan, Mothra Leo, those things hit hard and fast enough to where his shields aren't really that impactful. It's not like when he's fighting G89, that's a very good matchup for him. It's just not really happening that much anymore because these units are a lot more rare to see. So you're really not going to be seeing those matchups. But I mean, Jet Jaguar singular point isn't bad. He's always going to be useful as a tank. I just feel like there's better options. The main thing that separates him from not being as good is he's pretty fast on land, so he gets out in front a lot quicker, and he doesn't stall on buildings, so you can't really stack as much into a push with him as a first drop. So he kind of suits being a second off tank a lot better, and it's kind of hard to fit in a second off tank into a deck. So a little closer to the bottom of B, Jet Jaguar singular point goes, but at least it's better than Jet Jaguar 73. Next is Comma Swarm. We're going to go ahead and put right here. Mentioned it a little bit earlier when we were talking about Destroy a Larva Swarm. It's just 2 more swarm units than Destroy a Larva Swarm. The damage they do is not really that impactful. It's more the defensive properties they provide. And Comma Swarm being 7 hits to take out compared to Destroy a Larva Swarm's 5 is very nice, especially when you think about how AoE takes them all out at the same time pretty much. So they're pretty much made to counter single target attackers, and usually everyone will fit in an AoE unit. It's kind of hard for them to be meta nowadays. Next is Kamacuras. We're going to go ahead and put in top of A. Kamacuras is insanely reliable utility for 2 cost. Everyone knows it by now. A very staple unit in this game. Kamacuras and Godzilla battle line is almost iconic. Like that, it's just everywhere. You are infested with Kamacuras. If you play Godzilla battle line, these things are crawling up your legs in your dreams. They're everywhere. They're everywhere, people. Next is Kid Ship. We're going to go ahead and put right here. Kid Ship is just too expensive for what it does. It needs to be cheaper, and maybe it'll be around B tier, C tier, we'll see. But yeah, 5 cost teleport is just not cutting it with how energy works in this game. It is not worth it. Next is King Caesar. We're going to go ahead and put in bottom of A. Yeah, I'm going to put King Caesar back in A tier because dude hits really hard. He counters ground units so well. And even if they're all flyers pretty much and there's no ground unit to prioritize, that charge damage on the leader is really nice. Fire Dan can't take that. Mechagodzilla 2021 got added, so that's another use for him. And King Caesar is always going to draw the Kamacuras, which leaves your 5 cost flyers like Batra, Fire Dan, and Leo to not have to deal with the Kamacuras as much. So they kind of have to make a decision. I think King Caesar is just fits really well into the meta and always has because of how much damage he deals, how cheap he is, and how fast he is. He's just a pressure incarnate. He's a pretty solid piece for a 2-star, and I think he's worth an A tier. I don't feel too crazy about throwing him in there. If you do, let me know, but I think King Caesar is a beast, okay? Next, we got Mechagodzilla. Gonna be putting in front of Dorats. Mechagodzilla is just not as good as Descadora. Descadora has the stun properties and just a lot better defensive option. It's slower, and it chases around units more. Mechagodzilla is too fast, not tanky enough, too slow of attack speed, and just too many flaws for a 7 cost evolution unit nowadays. And man, it just sucks how King Ghidorah got that evolution, and Mecha King Ghidorah has just never been able to be usable. And it was usable as a leader for like a month or 2, and they ruined that, but we won't talk about that. As a unit, it's just been very rough for Mecha King Ghidorah. That first season it came out, it was actually super strong, but you could never evolve it. And then they nerfed it pretty much, and then fixed the evolution time. So it's the Mecha King Ghidorah we have now, where no one really likes to use it. I see it every once in a while. Yeah, it can get a win against me if I'm running like a fun team. I've seen that happen before. It's like a pretty nice level, but just in comparison to other units, I'm not seeing it with Mecha King Ghidorah. I think it really needs a buff, but we'll move on. Next is Kong. We're going to go ahead and put in... Oh, sorry, Kong fans. Going here. C tier. Kong. The thing about Kong, his buff he just got is trash. So trash. So, like the worst thing you could buff on Kong. And then you add Mechagodzilla 2021, which essentially feels like a better version of Kong. It's tankier. It looks like it hits harder. It doesn't have the AoE right away like Kong does, and it's not as high of reach, I don't think. But the missile barrage is massive, and it's like 1,000 damage, and this is like a level 12 Mechagodzilla. Like once it gets to those nice level 20 levels, that missile barrage is going to be huge even if it's hitting once on some flyers. It's insane. It's like a burning Godzilla explosion almost. That's how much damage it could be doing to those flyers, so it is a big plus. But as far as Kong goes, the AoE swipe is better. It's more consistent than Mechagodzilla 2021, especially when you're going to be dealing with swarms and things like that. But he also still needs the levels. He just came back, and maybe we could be seeing some more B tier from him if he gets to 20 a lot more consistently with people. But yeah, I don't think Kong is super hot. He's just not tanky enough, and He's not yeah, he's just not tanky enough. He needs to be tanky enough for the Mothra heal to be able to work with him, and I think he'll be fine, but yeah, I think he needs a little bit of buffs, maybe in the HP department. That'd be nice. Next, we got Markalite Cannon. We're going to go ahead and put... Let's go here. Yeah, Markalite Cannon. Train Bomb just came back, so that kind of sucks for it. I feel like we could have seen a lot more Markalite Cannon with Train Bomb being broken. I actually didn't see it at all. Maybe I should have tried it myself. But it does do a lot of damage. Train Bomb just shuts it down, and it is immobile, so it's never really going to push. I do think it can hit the leader in overtime, which is a nice plus, but yeah, it's always just going to be a C tier pick till we see some changes to Train Bomb or to Markalite Cannon in general, but it's a decent C tier pick, not the worst thing. Next is M-Bob Base. We're going to go ahead and put right behind Kong. M-Bob Base was also seeing a lot more play with Train Bomb not working, and it's doing pretty well because it didn't really have, you know, that direct counter. It spawns a ton of M-Boss, it's a lot of stuns, and it's a lot of bodies out there to take hits, and they do take 2 hits pretty often. But like I said, Train Bomb's back, so if anything, M-Bob Base is just going to be right back to where it was. Pretty nice in the right situations, but also can be countered and stalled on, so that's M-Bob Base. Normal M-Boss are D tier, just a worse version, spawns less for 3 cost, like only 2 for 3 cost, and they don't really do any damage, so it's just not that useful. Next is Mechagodzilla. We're going to put right here. Mechagodzilla is so gapped at this point. He's just a worse Naranga. If you don't like Naranga, you don't like Mechagodzilla, that's for sure. So stop using Mechagodzilla. He has like no niche. There's nothing good about him. Nothing stands out. The only thing that's decent about him is his cost. And even then, he needs a buff. Next is Mechagearus. We're going to put right behind Descadora. Mechagearus is a very nice defensive option. That slow is very unique to her as a monster unit. And the DPS is still pretty solid from her. She's decently tanky. She's just a decent unit. Very decent everywhere with a nice slow. So she's always going to be in B tier. Pretty solid. Next is Manila. We're going to go ahead and put in C tier. Where do we want to put Manila? Probably here? Yeah, Manila's just not useful. I just don't think he's useful. The stuns aren't reliable. He's not tanky. He doesn't do damage. The stuns need to be more reliable. That attack speed should have never been touched. His health should have never been touched. He was fine. More things get added to the game that are going to be able to deal with him, and now he's just kind of useless. Sucks to see from the little guy, but at the end of the day, Manila is a joke, so it's alright for him to not be super good. He had his moment in the sun, at least. We'll give him that. Next is Missiles. We're going to go ahead and put right here. Missiles is just a horrible version of Train Bomb. Even when Train Bomb was down, nobody swapped to Missiles. Everyone is using Kiryu. So Missiles is not only a worse version of Train Bomb, it's a way worse version of Kiryu. It's like throwing out Kiryu without Kiryu spawning. We don't even think of that. It's literally like throwing out Kiryu without Kiryu showing up for one more cost after the missiles. That's how bad this thing is. It is atrocious. It's horrible. Mogira, with Train Bomb being out, no one really even used Mogira because he's not that consistent at taking out energy bases. Kamacuses counter him way too hard. But now that that's gone, he's going back to like his normal spot of he's just a great unit to throw behind the leader when your push is reaching to the enemy leader. It's just really good. He's cheap. He's the cheapest option for that. His DPS is still pretty solid. He's decently tanky, and he gets the job done. Not enough to be A tier because he doesn't contribute a ton, but that role that he has is very strong, and it works. So, top of B tier. Mothra Leo going into the S tier. Broken Mothra Leo. Mothra Leo is really good, and I was thinking like Firedan could be better because Mothra Leo isn't that good defensively, but Mothra Leo's offense is so extremely strong that he is just dominating the board. If you do not counter Mothra Leo with Kamacuras or something, it's just going to dominate. There's nothing that's going to take his hits and then out DPS him. He is so tanky, his initial damage is so high, and he can't be touched by ground units, which are usually the units that do the most damage. So, dude's insane, man. Dude is insane. Everything in S tier, I think, could be toned down a little bit. Maybe Burning Godzilla deserves, probably a couple more months, and we'll see how he does. I do think the explosions are going to get pretty old in a year's time, especially with 4th Angel when he comes around, but for right now, Burning Godzilla was not very usable, so why are we even talking about him? But Mothra Leo, going back to him, is a jerk, an absolute jerk. And he tries to get you with his looks, his pretty colors, but if you look past those pretty vibrant colors, he's an evil, dark soul sitting in there just waiting to kill you. Don't trust Mothra Leo. Next is Mothra Leo's mommy, which is the famous Mothra. Everyone loves Mothra. Screw Leo, right? Nobody likes Leo. Who likes the Super Saiyan Mothra? Mama Mothra is decent. I don't think that last buff did anything for her. She didn't need more damage. She needs help on her evolution time and her tankiness. She is too short range for a flyer and too frail. She's probably the frailest out of all the flyers. Yes, she's 4 cost, but the evolution's also harder to do, and her attack speed isn't exactly that high. She kind of does one attack for a long time. It does a ton of damage, but like I said, that range is low, that it doesn't really pair well when fighting into Batra, Firedan, those things. Mothra is actually a really good counter for ground units, like G89. She's going to be doing insane damage to him, like Jet Jaguar Singular Point, breaking those shields. In the early days of Godzilla Battle Line, Mothra was really good for that stuff. But now, when she has to fight against her broken flying brethren, like, they just mess her up, so she could use some help, but she's still not bad. She still does a ton of damage. You can Dimension Tide combo with her. She is probably going to die mid-combo, but the damage is still going to be insane. You could still have fun with Mothra. If you're a Mothra fan, don't worry. I still have fun with her sometimes, and she's a pretty solid leader. So it's not like the worst thing, not the worst situation in the game for her. Next is Naranga. Dude, Naranga's pretty damn solid, you guys. The stuns on Naranga are really good. His stats are the only thing that are kind of holding him back. He's a little bit weaker than Mechagodzilla, but because he can stun so many things pretty reliably and attack everything, and he goes invisible, he just has a lot of niches that let him be good. I mean, if we're looking at matchups for Naranga, we could see he doesn't do well into most flyers, but he can stunlock Burning Godzilla pretty well. He can stunlock Anguirus pretty well. He can fight into Hedorah pretty decently. He can stunlock, can't stunlock Caesar, but can stun him out of the charge. He can stun Ultima pretty decently. He can stun Gigan 04 pretty well. Stuns G54 really well. He stuns Descador like absolute crazy. I mean, those are just units that were all above him, and he stuns a lot of them very good. He's a pretty solid dude, and he might even have potential to be higher and higher as these seasons go on. Once you guys use him, once you incorporate him into your teams, I'm already seeing a lot more people starting to pick up Naranga just based off of my ranked battle videos, and even before that, I've seen people say like, yes, Naranga is very good. You are just going to have to take time to learn his stun windows. If you place him straight up, he's not really going to be stun locking that many things. You need him to be on the side so that when those monsters turn to fight him, that's like extra time it takes for them to lock into their fighting animation. And because Naranga is invisible, he gets that initial time to turn to them a lot quicker, which causes him to attack faster, which causes the stun lock chain. You might have to replay what I just said twice to fully understand it, but I think it makes sense. He's just a very skill-based unit. It's going to take a lot of practice, but Naranga has really, really good potential to stun a lot of things. Next is Psychic Chorus. We're going to be putting bottom of S Psychic Chorus did get nerfed, and I watched an old video of mine with old Psychic Chorus. That heal was insane compared to this one. I was like, wow. You almost forgot how insane that heal was. It's still really good because there's not that many heals in the game though. So Fire Dan's the only other heal, and to activate that, Fire Dan has to die. Psychic Chorus is instant, it's 3 costs, pretty cheap, and it's a pretty nice big AoE circle that can fit onto several units at the same time. You could also drop it on your leader while a unit's fighting next to your leader. It's very good on offense, very good on defense, very cheap, very affordable, and there's nothing really like it. It's a very, very good unit. Next is a not very good unit, Rodan 64, I think you are? Yeah, Rodan 64. Super, super frail. So it's frailer and shorter range than Mothra by a lot. And if Mothra had those problems, Rodan is just getting blasted out of the sky before he can do anything. So as far as the meta goes in high tier King of the Monsters, Rodan 64 is Garbo. He just doesn't work. He doesn't fit into the game. Low ranked players, I know Rodan 64 is probably feeling like an A tier pick right now, maybe even S tier to some people. I've seen it for over a year, people complain about Rodan 64 when they first get this game, but trust me, if you're watching this thinking I'm crazy, he's gonna suck later on. It's just that there's not that many flyers for lower level players, so you're gonna be seeing him a lot, but man, this guy just doesn't have a niche in King of the Monsters, and it sucks to see. Next is Shin Godzilla. We're going to go ahead and put right here. Shin Godzilla has problems because he's a 2 evolution unit that is 6 costs, super slow, has attack animation problems, and his normal attack against ground units is absolute trash. Even the AoE attack, I mean, it's pretty good, but it's just hard to make work because he's so slow. It's so easy to manipulate like what you want to fight him because it's not like he's fast. It's like, oh god, Shin's coming. Oh gosh, I need the energy to, oh my, I can't even, I have to drop the flyer. Oh my god. No, none of that happens. Shin walks 1 mile per hour. It gives you like literally an hour to write an essay about what you want to do to counter the strategy. And usually it's just drop an Anguirus, drop a Biolante, drop a G89, drop anything that is not going to trigger the AoE, have the Batra or Mothra Leo fly over the top, and boom goes the dynamite, the Shin Godzilla is going to die. You could think, well, how about defense? You can deploy him on defense when only flyers are coming. Yeah, you could, but at that point, he's probably evolving like 2 minutes later, and how else were you going to deal with the Batra and Mothra Leo flying at you for those 2 minutes? You probably had something else on your team to deal with it, which means you didn't need Shin Godzilla. He's just a problematic unit. The only thing, if you really love Shin, is Gigan Leader works really well with him. If you have Shinagawa die before he evolves, you could place him behind your leader, wait for him to evolve, save up 10 energy, as soon as he evolves, deploy everything and Gigan rush it, and you could probably get some wins doing that. I have, but as far as everything else goes, Shin Godzilla is just not that good, and I think we can all agree the dude needs more buffs. Next is Space Godzilla, who is a pretty consistent dude. Space Godzilla is going to go here. If anything, the unit showcase made me respect Space Godzilla more. I didn't know that Space Godzilla can literally one-shot Earth, counter him. Not like one-shot him, but you know what I mean. Like, if you watched Space Godzilla fight Earth in that unit showcase, you see that Space Godzilla can take 0 damage and kill Earth, like, easily. All you have to do is wait for Earth to walk into range. You just want to time it so that Space Godzilla's crystal hits Earth. And yeah, Earth's screwed at that point. Space Godzilla can literally 1v1 him at any level. It's really crazy. I mean, that's just a little niche strategy, but Space Godzilla counters a ton of things. It counters Leo super well. Leo does not like having to deal with those charges. Space Godzilla also functions with Leo extremely well because he can walk out in front, Leo can come in from behind and catch up with those crystal buffs while hitting a massive charge with a 20% damage boost. So, or is it 25? I think Space Godzilla is 25%. I think his leader is 20, which makes no sense, but anyways. Space Godzilla is pretty solid. He's always been around A tier, top of B tier. He's not a carry. He's just kind of a higher cost support option, so it's kind of hard to fit him into most decks. I haven't even ran him in a while, or seen him in a while, but the more I think about it, Space Godzilla is just a pretty solid choice. I mean, he's pretty decent. Pretty good. Pretty good. Next is Super X. We're going to go ahead and put top of B. I'm demoting Super X because there's just too many counters to this thing. Dimension Tide Ultraman, yes. Any piercing like Descador Dimension Tide. Earth Dimension Tide, yes. Any AoE, Hedora Dimension Tide, yes. But what's the main thing that is making me think this? Dude, Kiryu. When Train Bomb was gone for that first month of this, or first half of the season, and Kiryu was everywhere, Kiryu shuts down Super X so hard, and Kai does especially. And Kiryu is so much easier to just throw out because you want Kai. So killing Kiryu for a Super X is like a better trade now, because back then you were like, okay, I'm sacrificing 6 energy for 5. So, I mean, it's not like that bad. But now it's like I'm sacrificing 6 energy for 5. Kiryu's still going to be alive to deal with the a couple shots on the leader. And he's going to be an evolution closer to Kai, which gives you a ton of more uses for Kiryu. So, I think Super X is just dealing with a lot of hard counters. Still a really OP unit. If they don't have Kiryu, don't have Dimension Tide, don't have Ultraman, I think you're pretty much in the clear. Super X is going to feel like a really good unit. But if you do see those specific counters, it doesn't just it neutralizes Super X. It doesn't just like make it hard to use, it neutralizes it. So I feel like right now it's more of a B tier pick due to the lack of consistency for that, but still really strong. Next is Ultraman. Let's go ahead and just drop you in S tier, Mr. Ultraman. That's where you belong. Ultraman is so good. The best user of the Dimension Tide combo. I see a nice combo from Codex a lot where very simple, just drops Burning Godzilla, drops Ultraman behind, and uses Dimension Tide to suck them into the explosion and Ultraman's damage. I don't really see anyone do such a little tiny push like that. It'll just do that on the side. I just thought it was interesting how well it works. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many things you could do with Ultraman. He is really good. The unit showcases do him dirty because he's a horrible 1v1er. He doesn't have the best DPS, but he's pretty tanky, and when paired with Dimension Tide to give him that bonus damage and to hit everything, he's phenomenal. I mean, we all know. And he sits outside of leader range. The Dimension Tide combo onto the leader and to pull everything around. I mean, yeah, dude's crazy, man. Ultraman's really good. The only thing that makes him not as good as these other 3 units is he doesn't have that high damage like we mentioned, and what's the other thing? He doesn't have that high damage, and he does need Dimension Tide to perform at an extremely high level. Like Batra, Leo, and Firedan just do it all themselves. They don't really need anything. Ultraman does need Dimension Tide, which is still a pretty good effect piece to have, but just because of that, I think it makes him the 4th best. But I mean, it's still nice to be an S tier. Wouldn't you think so, Mr. Ultraman? I feel like you'd like being an S tier. There's not too many S tier honors in this game, and you got one. And it's not even your game, bro. You're just a guest, dude. So enjoy it. Next is Train Bomb, which now that it's working again for the past couple days, it is going to be an A tier. If it wasn't fixed, it would have been a D tier pick, and Kiryu would have been S tier, spoiler alert, but I guess it's not a spoiler alert because it didn't happen. But Train Bomb is really good at countering Energy Base, and as we all know, Energy Base is a nuisance that needs to be countered if you want to win the game. And the only other real use for it is some chip damage on ground units, which aren't exactly the most meta thing, and on the leader, and finishing off people for Kiryu leader. So it's not insane, but because it can take out Energy Base, which is its main use, that's why it's on most people's teams, it still warrants an A tier pick. Zeton, we're going to go ahead and put in right here. Zeton has problems with, it needs Godzilla Earth to even be a functioning unit, and even then that combo isn't exactly one of the better ones in the game. Zeton needs some buffs. It's not an 8 cost unit. It needs to be like 7 or 6. I can see why they're hesitant with it because it's purely a defensive unit. And if it's too strong, it's going to be ridiculously stupid to play against. And it's going to make games drag out super long if this thing is just killing everything. But at the same time, it has to have some contribution to the meta. It hasn't really been on any teams that I've seen. Some people say they see it like randomly, but I haven't seen it once unless I'm trying it out, which even I don't do that much because it's not that high of a level. So I would like to see some Zeton buffs. He was the main boss of the Shin Ultraman movie. Gotta put some respect on these bosses' names. Look at Shin Godzilla, Destroya, Zeton, some evil-ass mofos, and they're in C tier. Come on, they're evil. Let them be strong. Mephiles, we're gonna go ahead and put right here? Yeah, Mephiles right there. So, I just used Mephiles, and he's awesome. He's awesome. He hits really hard, and he might be 6 cost, but he's a pretty slow walker, so it kind of evens itself out, especially when you're comparing him to Godzilla 04, because they have similar DPS. Mephiles isn't hitting as hard as Go4 at similar levels, but he walks a lot slower, which means it's easier to stack a push with him, and he's cheaper. So I do think he's a little bit better. And he also has that kick stun, which is very, very nice. I think it's better than Go4's tail swipe. Do I think it would be nice for him to be 5 cost still? Absolutely. But he might be really strong. I feel like we're still sleeping on Mephiles a little bit. You guys more than me. He's really, really good, you guys. At level 30, DPS with G89 boost is over 1,000. He also has over 3,000 HP. He has stuns that counter short range units very nicely, so he has that defensive capability, and I'm telling you, Mephiles is a lot better than you think. Next is who we were just talking about, Go4, who is the very bottom of B for me this season. So Go4 is too fast for his own good. I mean, he's teetering on C tier. I don't think he's that bad though. I feel like that's a little too disrespectful for him because he's not an evolution unit. He still hits really hard, has really good DPS. I feel like he has animation problems where Mephiles doesn't. I feel like Mephiles is really good at being like, yeah, I want to kick this mother effer, or I want to shoot this mother effer. And Mephiles also can stun people with his beam if they're close enough too, which Go4 does not have the ability to do. So honestly, I just feel like Mephiles is a better version of him, which is weird because Mephiles is a 3-star and Go4 is a 4-star. But I'm still going to give Go4 the benefit of the doubt. Maybe at higher levels, it'll be a lot more worth it. He's still like pretty much the lowest level 4-star I have right now. If we're not including Mechagodzilla 2021, he's not even level 5 for me, so I haven't been able to use him since his debut season. But I still remember having a lot of fun that season with him. Just every time I see him, he's a little too slow. He does have some nice counters, like he does do pretty well into Mothra Leo and Gigan 04, those short range units, but really unsure with him, and time will tell. But Go4, I'm just like, I don't really have a lock on right now. Next is Kiryu Kai. We're going to go ahead and put right here towards the top of A. I think Kai is amazing. And this includes normal Kiryu too. It's like how we normally do. Pre-evolution, everything included with the unit. Kai has so much more utility than normal Kiryu. People are sleeping on Kai. I don't get how people could think Kiryu normal is better. Simply because Kiryu Kai's explosive range on the missile AoE is way bigger. It's more like Hidora's, which is a lot better than normal Kiryu. It does a lot more, especially when you deploy it on the leader. The AoE is hitting way more things. You can deploy him outside of leader range in the corner so that he's not even taking leader damage. You can do it in the front. It allows for Kiryu to make more plays in the midfield as Kai because he's going to be outside of leader range. And then he still has that utility to just go right behind the leader if you need him to tank for a push. So I really like Kai. I really like Kiryu. And I'm hoping you guys like him too and will swap to him over Train Bomb. Because not only do I hate Train Bomb, but I think Kiryu has a lot more upside than Train Bomb if you're willing to swap him in your deck for the higher cost. Maybe he's not like a direct replacement, but if you can afford to be like, yeah, I don't feel like Train Bomb fits in this deck as much. I feel like I want Kiryu to do two things for me, be more of that damage dealer in the back lines, and also be able to take out the energy bases. Kiryu was S tier, I'm telling you guys. Before the Train Bomb bug fix, Kiryu was really pulling his weight and was potentially S. I still think he's really good, and I think because everyone's been using him so much more now, they're just going to keep him in their decks over Train Bomb. I know I am. I never really liked Train Bomb to begin with. I'm a monster dude. I'm not a Trains fan. I'm not into Thomas the Choo Choo Train. I'm into Godzilla, and I like seeing Kiryu hit the field. And Kai was a wonderful addition to this game. We're a little skeptical with it at first, especially because it had a bug. And I think it had 2 bugs, but it's good to see him doing pretty well. He looks awesome. Love to see it. Next is EVA Unit 1. We're going to put right in front of Mephiles. EVA Unit 1 is going to be seeing a rise in the meta as soon as 4th Angel is above level 20 for everyone. I'm telling you. EVA Unit 1 being able to counter Burning Godzilla and 4th Angel's explosions are massive, and it's going to make this unit at least A tier, I guarantee it. Next is 4th Angel, bottom of A tier always for this thing until it's officially in the meta. It's still too low a level, but this thing's broken. It's honestly an S tier pick eventually. I'm just not going to lie to you guys. That's what it's going to be. It's that strong. If you aren't leveling it up, please do. Or actually wait till the gold discount level up things. That's what I'm going to do now, because now that they've done it more than once, I think we're allowed to be like safe and wait for the next one. But yeah, anyways, 4th Angel is crazy. And then last thing in the video is going to be Mechagodzilla 2021. Tier list hasn't been updated yet, so going to be putting him over this Kiryu here. And Mechagodzilla 2021 is pretty good. I think he's better than G21 and Kong. It's better than Kong for sure. I mean, we mentioned earlier he is a better Kong. And I think at those high levels, he has the most potential. I think this guy has around 4,800 HP at level 30, which is really high, especially for how much damage he can do. And if you throw Mothra Heal and Psychic Chorus on top of him with keeping him in that missile barrage range, and if you can get off 2 of those, man, I'm already seeing the potential with him. And I've been using him at level 12 if you've been watching me on the channel, and we've still been seeing some pretty moderate success. So very happy with his addition as a unit. I'd like to see him buffed a little bit as a leader too, but overall he looks awesome and I love his animations. The punch is so satisfying. If you guys listen to that sound effect when he just kills something with a punch, you're just like, oh yes, yes, MG21, yes. But that is going to conclude my tier list. Mechagodzilla 2021 is also very versatile. Let's throw in a little more information. Works really well with Gigan, G89, Mothra. So if you like this guy, have some fun with him. I have some decks. Go ahead and check them out. But yeah, that's going to conclude the tier list. Thank you guys for watching. I know these take a while, but hopefully you enjoy me just rambling on about this game that we all love. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you like any of my changes. If you think anything should be higher, lower. I read everything. Have a good rest of your day. Take care and peace out.